The rain hammered against the windshield of Leo's beat-up sedan, a frantic, percussive drumming that matched the frantic rhythm of his thoughts. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, as he navigated the slick, neon-smeared streets of the city. In the back seat, his daughter, Maya, was humming a soft, tuneless melody, a valiant attempt to ward off the gloom of the evening. They were coming back from a birthday party, one of those lavish affairs for a classmate that Leo could barely afford the gift for. Maya hadn't complained, not once. She never did. That somehow made it worse. He was a good father. He had to be. It was the only thing he was sure of in a life that felt increasingly precarious. His job as an architect at a mid-tier firm was stable but soul-crushing, a constant cycle of designing uninspired commercial spaces for clients who prized budget over beauty. His wife, Elena, had left 3 years ago, chasing a life that felt bigger than the one they'd built. The divorce had been amicable on paper, but it had hollowed him out, leaving him to raise Maya alone. As he slowed for a red light, his headlights cut through the downpour, illuminating a figure huddled under the awning of a shuttered bookstore. It was a woman, soaked to the bone, her clothes little more than rags clinging to her thin frame. She was clutching a worn, filthy backpack to her chest as if it contained the very essence of her being. In her other hand, she held a small, hand-scrawled sign, "Any help?" God bless. Maya, who was blessed with a perceptiveness far beyond her 7 years, saw her too. Daddy, look. That lady is all wet. Is she cold? Leo's heart clenched. He had a rule about these things. Don't make eye contact. It was survival. You couldn't save everyone, and a single father on the brink couldn't afford the emotional or financial detritus of charity. But Maya's voice, so small and pure, disarmed him. I'm sure she is, sweetie, he said, his voice tight. Can we give her my birthday umbrella? The pink one. Maya asked, reaching for her new, treasured possession. Leo sighed. It was a cheap umbrella, a party favor. Sure, baby. Good idea. He rolled down the window a crack, the rain immediately spattering his arm. Hey, he called out, his voice swallowed by the storm. The woman didn't look up. He honked the horn softly. She flinched, her head snapping up. In the brief flash of the streetlight, he saw her face. It was streaked with grime, but her eyes were startlingly clear, the color of winter ice, and filled with a profound, ancient weariness that seemed to carry the weight of worlds. The umbrella, he yelled, holding it up. For you. He tossed it, but the wind caught it, sending it skittering across the wet pavement. The woman didn't move to retrieve it. She just stared at him, a single tear tracing a clean path through the dirt on her cheek. The light turned green. Cars behind him honked. Just drive, Daddy, Maya said softly, her voice now laced with a sadness that cut him deeper than any honking horn. He was about to obey, to merge into the indifferent flow of traffic, but something in the woman's gaze held him. It was a look of utter, soul-crushing abandonment. He knew that look. He saw it in the mirror sometimes when he thought Maya wasn't looking. He saw it in his own reflection. No, he said, his voice firm. He pulled the car over. Stay here, baby. Lock the doors. I'll be right back. He got out, the rain instantly plastering his hair to his head. He walked over to the woman, the water pooling around his shoes. He was a fool. An absolute fool. He had $32 in his pocket until next Friday. What was he doing? Miss, he said, his voice barely audible over the storm. Are you okay? She looked up at him, her gaze unfocused for a moment, then sharpening. I've been worse, she said, her voice raspy but surprisingly well-spoken. The umbrella was lying a few feet away, a useless pink blot against the gray asphalt. He made a split-second decision. It was a terrible idea. A monumentally stupid idea. It was completely illogical and financially irresponsible. Come on, he said, offering his hand. Just for tonight. You can't stay out in this. I've got a couch. And some soup. She stared at his hand as if it were a venomous snake. Then, slowly, hesitantly, she reached out. Her hand was ice-cold and bone-thin. As he helped her up, he felt her tremble. He led her to the car. Maya unlocked the back door without a word, her big brown eyes wide. The drive to their small apartment was silent, punctuated only by the squeak of the windshield wipers and the woman's occasional shiver. Maya, ever the hostess, offered the woman a half-eaten bag of pretzels. The woman took them with a look of profound gratitude and ate them slowly, as if savoring each grain of salt. The apartment was small, cluttered with Maya's art projects and Leo's architectural sketches. It was a warm, messy sanctuary. He helped the woman out of her wet, filthy coat and gave her a towel. He led her to the bathroom, where a hot shower waited. He dug out his largest t-shirt and a pair of old sweats. I'll put some soup on, he said. Take your time. While she was in the bathroom, he prepared a simple dinner. He looked at his dwindling groceries. The soup was just canned chicken noodle, but it was hot and filling. Maya sat at the small kitchen table, drawing a picture of the storm, which now featured a pink umbrella and a smiling woman. The woman emerged from the bathroom, transformed. Her face, free of grime, was beautiful though gaunt. Her hair, a startlingly bright silver white, was cropped short. It was the kind of hair that looked expensive, even now. She wore his clothes, which were comically large on her. Thank you, she said, her voice now stronger. You didn't have to do this. I know, Leo said, shrugging. Please sit and eat. They ate in relative silence. She told him her name was just Alara. She said she'd been traveling for a while. She didn't elaborate. She was polite, and her table manners were impeccable. She seemed, in fact, completely out of place in his cramped kitchen, like a fine china teacup in a diner mug. She was articulate and sharp, and he found himself thinking about her unusual accent and the intelligence behind her tired eyes. He offered her the couch, piling it with blankets. Maya, who had fallen asleep on his lap, was carried to her own room. He lay in his own bed, staring at the ceiling, questioning his sanity. What had he just done? He had a stranger sleeping in his living room. He locked his bedroom door for the first time in years. The next morning, a shaft of sunlight was his alarm clock. He lay still for a moment, the events of the previous night feeling surreal. He walked out into the living room, bracing himself for, he didn't know what. The couch was empty. The blankets were folded neatly. A note was on the coffee table. He picked it up, his stomach sinking. She was gone. It was a classic story. The kindness of a fool, and the fool is left holding the bag, feeling stupider than ever. He heard a noise from the kitchen and found Maya at the table, eating a bowl of cereal. She was smiling. Daddy, look what the lady left for you. On the table was a cell phone. It wasn't his. It was a sleek, top-of-the-line device, the kind he could never afford. There was a single contact in the phone. It read simply Alara. He groaned. Another problem. Her cell phone. Would she come back for it? He'd have to try and return it somehow. He took a deep breath and took the day off work, a rare luxury he'd been saving for a rainy day. This was certainly that. He went about his morning routine, getting Maya ready for school. He put the mysterious phone in his pocket, planning to figure out what to do with it later. As he was making coffee, a news alert flashed on the television, which was still on mute. He turned up the volume. After a decade-long disappearance, the world was stunned today when the elusive heiress and tech mogul, Althea Sterling, has been found alive. The billionaire, who vanished without a trace 10 years ago, was rumored to have been hiding a devastating secret. Her company, Sterling Technologies, which is responsible for the revolutionary Elysian global communication network, has been waiting for her return. Her board of directors is expected to make a formal statement later today. Leo's blood ran cold. A photograph appeared on the screen. It was a professional headshot from a decade ago, showing a vibrant, powerful woman with the same stunning silver white hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. He fumbled in his pocket and pulled out the sleek phone. He stared at the screen, then back at the television. The woman in the photo, the world's richest woman, was the same person who had slept on his couch last night. The same woman who had eaten his soup. The same woman to whom he had given his deceased mother's hand-knitted blanket. He dropped his coffee mug. It shattered on the linoleum floor. Maya, get your things. We have to go, he shouted, his heart hammering against his ribs. His mind was a maelstrom of confusion and fear. Why had she been on the streets? Was she in trouble? Was he in trouble? He raced to the address the news mentioned, the towering, glass and steel headquarters of Sterling Technologies. The building was a monument to her wealth and power. He didn't have a plan. He just had a burning need to understand, to return the phone, to make sure he hadn't just been an accessory to some bizarre billionaire's prank. The security guards at the front desk were initially dismissive, almost hostile. But when he frantically explained he was there to see Alara, he couldn't bring himself to call her Althea, and held up the phone. His desperation seemed to crack their professional demeanor. They made a call, their eyes widening. Within moments, a woman in a sharp, expensive-looking suit rushed out. She was his age, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Mr. Vance, she said, extending a hand. I'm Sarah, Miss Sterling's personal assistant. Please, come with me. He was escorted to the penthouse, a huge, minimalist space that offered a breathtaking view of the city. The air was cool and smelled of ozone and leather. And there, standing by a massive window, looking out at the skyline, was Alara. She had been transformed. She wore a simple, elegant white pantsuit that looked like it cost more than Leo's annual salary. Her hair was styled, and she wore a subtle amount of makeup. She looked like a goddess. "I was wondering when you'd come," she said, turning to face him, a gentle smile on her lips. She looked healthy now, regal. The weariness was gone from her eyes, replaced by a powerful serenity. Leo was frozen. Your phone," he stammered, holding it out. She laughed, a soft, melodic sound. "Keep it. It's a gift. A poor one, considering. I need to thank you properly." "Thank me? For what?" You were on the street." "Why? You're worth a lot. Some things are more valuable than the balance in a bank account, Leo," she said, her gaze softening. "And some things are far more dangerous than being homeless. Let me explain." She gestured for him to sit. He was too stunned to do anything but comply. She and Sarah sat across from him. She told him a story that was equal parts Greek tragedy and modern-day thriller. She had been a young, brilliant engineer who had started a company from nothing. She had married a man named Julian, a charismatic financier who had seemed to be her perfect partner. They built sterling technologies together. Then, she began to have suspicions. She found evidence that Julian was using their company's resources to build a hidden, parallel system, a network that wasn't just for communication, but for mass surveillance, designed to give whoever controlled it absolute power over the global financial and political system. He was willing to destroy the world to rule it. When she confronted him, he tried to have her killed. She barely escaped with her life, but not her identity. She'd been in hiding ever since, moving from city to city, living among the invisible people, learning to survive without the vast system she'd helped create. She didn't trust anyone, not even the board of her own company, which she feared Julian had infiltrated. "But things have changed," she said, her voice hardening. "While I've been away, I've had people working for me, people I trust implicitly. Sarah is one of them. We've finally gathered enough proof. Julian is on the brink of launching his system. We have to stop him, and I had to come out of hiding to do it. My plan was to confront the board this morning, to reclaim my position. I was a mess, I was exhausted, and I was terrified. I didn't have the strength or the resolve to do it. I'd lost my nerve. And then I met you." "Me?" Leo whispered. "You reminded me that there is still goodness in the world. You risked your own comfort, your own security, for a complete stranger. You didn't do it because you recognized me, you didn't do it out of some sense of duty to a billionaire, you did it out of simple, pure humanity. You and your daughter. That's what I need to remember. That's the world I need to protect." For a moment, Leo saw the woman he'd brought home last night, the scared, tired soul who had eaten his soup. She wasn't just a billionaire. She was a person who had been through hell and survived. And now she was offering him a chance to be part of something bigger, something that terrified him even more than his financial woes. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. Sarah answered, her face turning ashen. She turned to Alara, her voice trembling. "Miss Sterling, we have a major problem. Julian has just gone public. He claims you're an imposter, a deranged homeless woman who's trying to stage a coup. He's called a press conference in the main lobby. The media is already there." Sarah looked from Leo to Alara, her expression a cocktail of fear and anger. "He's playing the victim, claiming he's been trying to find you for years, that your disappearance was a mental breakdown, and he's the benevolent caretaker trying to save the company from a madwoman." Alara's face went pale. This was Julian's move. This was the endgame. To discredit her so thoroughly that no one would believe a word she said. He would be the hero who saved the world from the insane founder. Leo watched Alara's strength falter. The confidence he'd seen just a moment before seemed to drain out of her, and for a flash, she was the vulnerable woman on the street corner again. Then, she looked at him. "No," Alara said, her voice soft but suddenly clear. "Not the main lobby. No, we let him have his moment. I think I know where to find a real story." She turned to face Leo fully, her eyes sharp and brilliant, a plan forming behind them. They need to remember what it is they're fighting for. What they're protecting. Her gaze flicked from him to the view of the city and then back. "Leo, do you have your daughter with you?" "Of course," he said, his confusion deepening. "She's with my neighbor. What does Maya have to do with any of this?" "Everything," Alara said, a fierce smile touching her lips. "She's the reason you pulled over. She's the reason I'm here. Now, I think she's the reason we'll win." The plan unfolded in a series of frantic, quiet moments. Sarah made calls, her voice a low, urgent murmur. Leo, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs, called the neighbor and asked her to bring Maya to the Sterling Technologies building. The request was met with confusion, but the neighbor, a kind-hearted woman named Patricia, agreed. 20 minutes later, Patricia arrived, leading a bewildered Maya by the hand. Leo kneeled down in front of his daughter, his hands on her small shoulders. "Maya, I need you to help me, and I need you to help that lady," he said, gesturing to Alara, who stood regally by the window. "Do you remember her from last night?" Maya nodded, her eyes wide and serious. "The bad man is trying to take her house away," Leo said, choosing his words with care. "But she's going to do something very brave, and she needs someone brave by her side. Will you stand with her?" Maya looked up at Alara. The billionaire gave her a gentle, encouraging smile. Maya's face lit up with a pure, innocent trust. "Yes, Daddy." Alara made her way down the back elevator, Leo and Maya flanking her. They emerged from a service entrance directly behind the main stage in the lobby, hidden by a massive, potted palm. Through the leaves, Leo could see the scene, a sea of journalists, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. On the stage, a tall, handsome man with a practiced, charming smile was speaking. Julian. He was the picture of manufactured sympathy. "My beloved wife, Althea," Julian was saying, his voice dripping with false concern. "She vanished, and I've spent every day since hoping for her return. But to see her now, in this state, this is not her. This is a woman who is broken, and to let her take control would be a disaster for Sterling Tech and for the world. I've tried to protect her. I've tried to protect you. But now, I must protect the company from her delusions. I have the authority to do what's necessary to save this family from itself." He paused for a dramatic, heartfelt sigh, and in that moment, Alara stepped out from behind the palm, Maya's small hand clasped in hers. She walked onto the stage, her every step radiating a calm, effortless power. The room fell into a stunned, deathly silence. Julian's perfectly crafted expression of concern froze on his face, replaced for a split second by pure, unadulterated rage. "Julian," Alara said, her voice amplified by the microphone on the podium. The sound was icy, calm, and carried to every corner of the vast space. "You've told them about my illness. You've told them about my breakdown. Let me tell them about the price of a soul." Julian recovered his composure, his mask of concern snapping back into place. "Althea, please. You need help. You are not well. Security." But Alara didn't move. She just stood there, holding Maya's hand. Her gaze swept across the crowd of reporters. "My husband will tell you I am mad," she said, her voice now ringing with conviction. "He will tell you I'm a danger to myself and others. But he won't tell you about the files hidden on his personal server. He won't tell you about the secret contracts he's signed with foreign governments. He won't tell you about the secret system code named Chimera that he has been building in the heart of this very building." The journalists began to buzz. Julian's face paled. "This is absurd. She's unstable. Do not listen to her." "I am a millionaire, a billionaire even," Alara continued, ignoring him, turning her full attention to the cameras. "But until last night, I had been sleeping on the streets for 3 months. I had nothing. I was nobody. And in my moment of greatest despair, a good man and his young daughter gave me shelter. They gave me soup. They gave me a blanket. They gave me hope." She looked down at Maya and gave her hand a squeeze. "They gave me the simple human decency that a selfish world has forgotten." She held up her phone, the sleek device Leo had tried to return to her that morning. "On this phone is a link to a live stream. I had it set up before I came down here. It's broadcasting from the main server room of Sterling Technologies, from the heart of Julian's project. It is showing all of you the very code he claims doesn't exist." She tapped a button. A giant screen behind her flickered to life. It wasn't a video feed, it was lines and lines of complex code, scrolling rapidly. But the final line was clear, written in a bold font: Chimera system, global deployment, imminent. "For 10 years, I have been gathering evidence," Alara said, her voice a sharp, vindictive rapier. "The board has seen this evidence this morning, which is why they are no longer on your side, Julian. Your entire system, your fraud, your delusions of grandeur are about to come crashing down." Julian lunged for her, a guttural roar of rage escaping his throat. But before he could reach her, he was tackled by security guards who had been expecting the signal. They were Sarah's men. The coup was over. In the pandemonium that followed, with cameras flashing and reporters shouting questions, Leo stood on the periphery, watching the chaos unfold. He was a man who hadn't seen his bank account tip over 4 figures since before his divorce, and he was witnessing the downfall of one of the most powerful men in the world. His sole connection to the story was holding the hand of his 7-year-old daughter. Alara looked over the shouting crowd, her eyes finding his. A genuine, Warm smile touched her lips. She walked toward him, somehow parting the sea of journalists without touching a single one. She reached them and crouched down to Maya's level. "Thank you," she said to the little girl, her voice soft again. "You saved my life. You and your brave daddy." Maya smiled, a little self-consciously. "You're welcome," she whispered. Ilara stood up, her gaze meeting Leo's. "I know you're an architect," she said. "And I know you're a good one. The world needs more people who build things for beauty and humanity. I have a project in mind. A new kind of city. And I need an architect. Are you interested?" The question hung in the air, a promise of a future he could never have dreamed of. He looked around the lobby, at the flashing lights, the frantic press, the security guards leading a handcuffed Julian away, his mask of charm completely shattered. He looked down at his daughter, who was watching Ilara with open admiration. Then he looked at the woman who had been a homeless beggar and was now the richest woman in the world. He saw the weary strength in her eyes and the genuine gratitude in her smile. He saw the woman who had slept on his couch and had asked for nothing but the soup he gave her. "Yes," he said, his voice quiet but certain. "I think I am." He didn't know what the future held. He didn't know if he would be designing cities for a tech visionary or if this was all a strange dream that would dissolve with the morning light. But as he took Maya's hand and the three of them walked out of the lobby and into the brilliant morning sun, Leo smiled. He had taken a homeless woman home because his daughter had asked him to, and in doing so, he had changed the world and his world forever.